Welcome to this week's installment of Reading with Robin, your number one destination since 2002 for insightful author interviews and discussions on everything literary. And with no further introduction, your host, Robin Call.
My guest today is author Mimi Lemay, and we are so excited that not only am I going to be speaking to her now, but she's coming to Rhode Island to the Cardigan Connection on Tuesday, December 17th. Our memoir, What We Will Become, A Mother, a Son, and a Journey of Transformation, has been out for just a few weeks, and I am really looking forward to chatting about this. Mimi is a graduate of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. As an advocate for transgender rights, Mimi has published op-eds in the Boston Globe and has appeared on television, radio, right here on Reading with Robin. She lives outside of Boston. Welcome to the program, Mimi.
Thank you for having me, Robin. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you, and we also have copies that we're giving away. So if people go to Reading with Robin, yes, on Facebook and also on Instagram, they can find the giveaway. Now, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter.
Yeah.
Is there a website? Did I miss it?
There is a website, which I'm building as we speak. It's mimilemay.com.
That's what I figured. Okay.
I'm a little bit of a Luddite, and I do love technology. I'm just not comfortable with it, so I am working on the website.
Kicking and screaming, but people can find you on Twitter, on Instagram, and on your Facebook page, and we really are thrilled. So you'll be here in just 2 weeks at the Cardigan Connection, and we have a fabulous lineup, and we're so excited to get to chat now and then also meet you in person.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
You're welcome. So the book's been out a few weeks now. I can only imagine if people go online and search for the book title for Mimi's name, What We Will Become, there is so much out there, interviews and information about the book. What are you hearing mostly? I guess I always think of the readers first. This book is out, this memoir. And what are you starting to hear from readers, either, online or at your events?
The thing that I am most excited to hear is that readers are saying, gosh, I really didn't understand. I knew that there were transgender children out there, but I didn't really understand the process that parents went through to reach the decision that their child might need to transition at a young age. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about trans kids, and it's hard to sort through all the noise. And hearing from people who said, oh, my goodness, I was so touched by your story, I understand this topic better now, was really, really gratifying for me.
Well, I can only imagine what that must feel like. The book is gorgeous. It's stunning. There are just you're welcome, so many things to talk about, from the parallels between your story growing up in ultra-Orthodox family, your decisions, and then your child, and all of, I just like the way it's sort of woven back with dream sequences. Like, there's nothing with like a book that has dreams in it. I just think dreams are so powerful, and the connection to our lives while awake, the meanings are just startling, and all of it. So I read this book in like a lot of different ways. But to have a child, he was 2.5. Is that how old when you?
Yep, 2.5 when he started to tell us I'm a boy.
Yeah.
And at first it didn't even register. I thought he was pretending or play acting. Mm-hmm. But as his mood started to decline, as his insistence grew stronger that he was a boy, we tried to figure it out. And back in 2012-13, when this was going on, it was a complete mystery to us. We didn't have the access to information that folks do today. So when you would Google transgender child, you just wouldn't get very much. So I would say we kind of putzed along for a year and a half, trying to sort this out, grasping at all kinds of theories about what was going on with our kid, until we finally eliminated them all except for the one that, gosh, maybe our son is telling the truth. Maybe this is his reality.
Isn't that amazing? You just said 2000, that's not a whole lot of years ago, really. I mean, within the scheme of things. but then you think about how much has changed in that amount of time. Yeah, because I was reading somewhere that there wasn't a whole lot of information. And, I don't know, as I get older, I'm like, I don't know, was that 5 years ago or was it 10 years ago? And sometimes someone will say, no, whatever that was 15. I'm like, no, it was like 2 years ago. So
I know, right?
Time is a bizarre thing. And with children, they are always, they're saying things, you're paying attention to them. They are out there hearing so many other things, you don't know what to believe, what to, not believe. Things pass. But it sounds like, upon reflection, things seem crystal clear. But I can only imagine putting yourself or myself in that situation at that time. You're just sort of going along and you're sort of like figuring things out, or how many people there are to talk to about this, or like you say, what's out there. So to me, it seems like a short amount of time that you figured this out. But I'm sure at the time it didn't feel like that.
Felt very long for us. And when I thought about it in the context of my child's young life, it was close to half of his life.
True.
So he'd been struggling to tell us something, and we hadn't been receptive. And so I'm really glad. I mean, in hindsight, right now he's 9 years old, almost 10, and he's lived the better part of his life authentically as the boy that he knows he is.
Yeah.
And he's thriving. But, it took us a while. It took us a while to get there.
Well, I was reading that just also the startling differences when Jacob was becoming who he is. Just the laughter, the humor, the noticing things, the verbal kicked up, like just all of those things where, I just juxtapose it to when you have teens and there are, they have those moody behaviors, and a lot of mental illness is not diagnosed because it's sort of like, well, that's just how a kid is, or boys will be boys, or whatever those things are. And then you look back and say, what were all these cues? Did I miss? As a parent, we're always worrying anyway. I mean, on the best day. So I think that just to see this child blossom into who they are, and reading also about the support that there are, that this book is certainly giving to people who are recognizing their own families, or I don't know, it made me think about older relatives and like, did this person not, or is that who they were supposed to be? Or it made me think a lot. And I'm on the phone with Mimi Lemay. Her brand new memoir is out. It's called What We Will Become, A Mother, a Son, Journey of Transformation. I don't know why I'm tripping over this. A Mother, a Son, and I'm going to have to talk to Taryn about it. A Mother, a Son, and a Journey of Transformation. It's beautiful. And you can read more online, and you can find Mimi on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, and soon at mimilemay.com. And here in Providence, Rhode Island at the Cardigan Connection on Tuesday, December 17th for our last series of 2019, amazingly. And I do remember, because I was listening to clips, that talk about the Elizabeth Warren event and Jacob.
It was remarkable for me to see him reach kind of a full circle with a sense of his own kind of empowerment and his own voice in advocacy. Mm-hmm. Because when we started out advocating, I was a parent of a 5-year-old, and I wrote the blog, A Letter to Jacob, on his 5th birthday with Jacob's permission, but he hadn't had much to do with it because he was so young. Mm-hmm. And when the media attention came and we started advocating and lobbying for equality bills, he was there, but he wasn't engaged. Mm-hmm. And then there came a period where he wasn't interested in becoming engaged at all. He just wanted to go to school and be the regular boy that he is.
Sure.
And so I kind of siloed my advocacy. I did it apart from him. And then he got, he went to school and just did his thing and with his friends. And then as of about a year ago, he began to perk up and have interest, and he wanted to come along, and he wanted to participate. And for me as a mother, that feels very gratifying, because I feel that he is getting a sense of his own power, his own efficacy, his own agency, that he can make a change in the world and that he wants to, is such a beautiful thing.
I remember hearing that clip, but I didn't connect it to this book. to this. I remember this child speaking to Elizabeth. Like, I remember that. But then I was like, oh my goodness, that was Jacob, and here I am reading this book. So like,
and if she wins, he gets to pick or vet at least the next Secretary of Education. So
well, thank goodness somebody with a head on their shoulders is going to be doing that.
A very young head, but a very wise head.
Well, you know what? We need young, wise heads. We really need them. We need them so badly. I also the story of your own childhood. I mean, talk a little bit about that, and also you write about that we don't need to choose between faith and acceptance. It's not mutually exclusive, and that was like very powerful for me.
Thank you. I grew up in a very ultra Orthodox community. Where everything in my life, from cradle to grave, from morning to night, was prescribed. Whether it was the blessings that we would say, the clothes we would wear, the thoughts we were meant to have, it was a very rigid way of life, which also had its beauty and its values and its traditions that I still do appreciate. But unfortunately, there wasn't a place for a young woman who wanted to spend her life in an intellectual pursuit of, the biblical text, the Hebrew text. That was a man's job in the world that I grew up in. And there were other subtle ways that women were demoted or denigrated. They were helpmates to their husbands, helpmates. Their purpose was to basically serve as the educator in the home, but as the person who fulfilled all their husband's needs and sent him off to do his learning. And I wanted to do the learning. So I felt that my longings were bad because I was told that they were outside of what God had destined for me. And that is where I felt there was a strong connection to the story with my son because trans people often hear, well, God designed you as a male or a female. And there's a box and you belong in it. And in a way, my wrenching myself out of the box of my youth, of my ultra-Orthodox youth, helped me understand that there's the people who feel that they know what you're meant to do or that they have, they're kind of, they have God on tap and they know what your purpose is in life. They may not be right because they weren't right before. So there may be something that I can do for my son. He may be able to live outside of that binary or that, the box of male, female. Your body is like this, and therefore you have to live like this.
It's so interesting, and I know when you're, certainly writing a story, and a memoir is a story of your recollections and the way that all fits together. You've got a narrative going. So I just think the way, I think you wrote somewhere that the book you set out to write is not the one that you ultimately wrote, which is the beauty of language and putting out a book, really, that hearing from the author, this is not the book I expected to write. I mean, did you expect that part of your story would be so interwoven with Jacob's?
No, I expected to have I knew that I wanted to connect the two, but I expected to have a harder time connecting the individual vignettes and the individual moments. Yeah. But to be perfectly honest, it almost felt like it was meant to be, that the design of it was just a lot laying out there for me to weave it together. And it once I started and I had laid out chronologically the different moments from my childhood or my young adulthood that were significant to me, and then I laid out the moments in the childhood, in Jacob's early days that were significant to our journey. I put them on index cards, and it felt like there was such a deep connection between each of the sides of the narrative that it became a matter of just sitting down to write because they wove themselves together.
Dare I say Bashert?
It was Bashert. It was Bashert. Yeah.
Reading
There's
that.
so much that was Bashert.
So much. Yeah. I mean, I really got chills reading this book. And I'm on the phone with Mimi Lemay. Her memoir is out just a few weeks, and we have copies to give away, which the Reading with Robin audience loves. You can go to Reading with Robin on Facebook or find me on Instagram. what we will become, a mother, a son, and a journey of transformation. And we have copies, and we will have Mimi here herself at the Cardigan Connection on Tuesday, December 17th at Askew, where we are third Tuesdays, and talk about you have 3 children. So how, and you write about this in the book, but how loving they all are, and they just, what a beautiful family. I love the family pictures and just like reading about everybody.
Thank
and
you.
how they you're welcome. How I think it was Ella was concerned about camp or introducing Jacob. I forget what exactly, but it was so. I just remember I was left with this loving feeling of this big sister.
I think we've all grown closer from the experience. I think many families will identify with that, even if they don't have a transgender child. But when there's something happens, when there's a crisis in a family, it's also an opportunity to grow together, and we definitely have. I think that Ella and Jacob have a very unique relationship because she was just 17 months older than him. Yeah. She is 17 months older than him, and it was, had that protective sense. She was always very motherly. And she still is towards him. And so she went through she bore the brunt of his anger and his depression. And when he transitioned, she was afraid for a few moments, like we all were. I'm losing somebody, I'm losing my sister. But she really has stepped up for her brother, and their relationship is closer than ever. I'm happy to say. And my little one, she was 2 at the time of the transition, a little bit over 2 years old, and she barely remembers, doesn't really remember that she had a sister. Yeah. And so she's kind of my example of a world where we don't even need to think about our differences, that she just accepts.
This is my brother, this is my sister, and that's who we are. And I think that's another one of the takeaways, and the hope. There's so much hope in this book for people to find it and to have conversations, and after all, that's what books do, and they help provide. What a great book club pick. I can only imagine how much speaking you're doing, and how do you have time? Where do you put the time, and how do you manage all of that as a mom and a writer and advocate?
That's a great question. So thankfully, I am a mom, a writer, and advocate, and don't have to also do another job, which I'm very, very lucky for, and I have to thank my husband for that.
Sure.
And so I plug it in, and, I have wonderful friends who, do the pickups and the drop-offs if I need to be somewhere on a given day. And so far we're managing it. I have to say it's been okay. It's been good. We've had busier weeks and quieter weeks. And now as we're heading into the holidays, it is a little quieter. I have to say I'm grateful for that.
Yes,
and it'll pick up again in January. Yeah.
And then because this is one of those books that just is, timeless, and the topics are so important. You're welcome. And really, I keep thinking back to how few years ago it was that there really wasn't as much information, and how much has changed, and how far we still have to go. Has Jacob thought about doing maybe a children's book?
That is a great question, and I don't know, but he does love writing.
No pressure, nothing to give another thing to do.
I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him that you suggested that,
I
think he will be thrilled.
Oh, I love that he would be. I would love that you're telling him, and then I love that you think he'd be thrilled, because I just seems like such a precocious child, wiser than his years, of course, and told from a child's perspective, and for other children to go, that's what that feels like. That is what I would say. I don't know.
Great. That would be great.
So much for your quiet winter, Lemay.
Children's book. Yeah, I know, right? I had been thinking about a children's book for a while, a picture book, because when Jacob began his advocacy at the age of 5, he would bring this little stuffed dog with him everywhere, and he was obsessed with the dog, and he carried it with him everywhere. And he called the dog Doggy, but it had another name, Bad. And I was thinking that a picture book from Badge's perspective of going to the State House in Massachusetts and going to listen to all these speeches and talk about how the bill becomes a law and what equality means and what advocacy means from a little stuffed animal's perspective would be a really nice introduction for young kids to, civil rights and fighting for something. So
yeah, there's so much I love that connects it because it's relatable. And when you have that perspective of the stuffed animal who is traveling around witnessing it from their point of view, oh my goodness, all sorts of things to be imagined.
Yes, exactly.
And also to know that your voice makes a difference. I mean, Jacob certainly has a very strong voice, and getting it in front of Elizabeth Warren is nothing short of that really, really cool. But these are such important topics, questions, and, we talk about at-risk youth, and that's something that the advocacy is really addressing, and the numbers are startling and all of this, and that we really need to accept people, our children to start with, but people just like this is a basic human thing that there can't ever be enough conversation around, and that it's become such a social battle. It's baffling to me, but what do I know?
And so dangerous for transgender and non-binary people that it has become sort of, well, what party do you identify with? That's how you feel about this topic, and it shouldn't be. It's about human lives. It's about the people who stand in front of you and tell you that they know who they are, and it's about respecting that.
And that it can't be stated often enough, and it is books like these and topics that, luckily are getting attention in the news and articles that are getting passed around. And this letter that you wrote to Jacob when he was 5 went viral. So, you put this out there. At what point did you say, wow, this is really getting out there, and what did that feel like?
I think it was within 24 hours of putting it out on Medium.com that it hit the 5,000 mark in about a couple of hours, and then it just kept exponentially growing. And then Boston.com reached out to me and said, can we publish this in full, even though I think it was 21,000 words or something like that. It's a huge, it's not that big. But anyway, it was quite big. Quite big.
Very big.
And if you print it out, it comes to like 20 pages printed out. And it just kept growing. And I didn't, like I said at the beginning of our conversation, I'm not as adept with technology and social media as my children even are. But I said, what is going on here? And it was a very exhilarating feeling, and also it produced anxiety. You wonder, does anyone know where I live? Well, thankfully, we had we live in Massachusetts, and it's I think the atmosphere here is geared towards more understanding and acceptance. Yes. And so we have not had any problems as of yet, other than online trolling. But
you can get on a good day, which it's to say to ignore those people. Some people have nothing better to do, and some of it I wonder if it's just artificial intelligence. I don't even know. Artificial non-intelligence.
You mean bots and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
like that.
Impossible.
Yeah, like that kind of crazy stuff. But I think the message is that so many people wanted to read it, share it, talk about it, and have connections in different ways. And I can only imagine how many conversations it helped to propel into really important, necessary discussions. So just amazing, the whole thing. And then from there, the book. And the book is What We Will Become, A Mother, a Son, and a Journey of Transformation. Mimi Lemay is coming here to Rhode Island, yay. December 17th, we'll have you at the Cardigan Connection, and very excited to meet you in person. And you're welcome. There are copies that we're giving away on Reading with Robin on Facebook and on my Instagram. And you can find Mimi also on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. There's just so much to talk about, but I'm going to let people read the book, and then we can talk more. Are you doing book club talks? You're welcome. Are you?
Yes, I will be. And there's some family members that have kind of reached out and said they want book club appearances and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
And I'll be going to libraries. And, so I'm really excited. Everything's been going really well, and I'm excited to, keep pushing the book out into the world. And, with the message that you can live an authentic life and still be a person of faith, and you can accept the humanity in others as well.
That's a basic thing of, you would think, a person of faith that would seem obvious, but it's important to state that you can be both. It's not one or the other. It's not binary. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I can imagine that the book clubs and you'll have all of that up on MimiLemay.com when it is ready to go out there. You can click on events and see where Mimi will be. And I encourage book clubs to choose this for a book club selection and have a conversation. That's what it's all about. And we will see you in just 2 weeks here in Rhode Island for the Cardigan Connection at Askew on Tuesday, December 17th. This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, Mimi.
Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to see you in person.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's installment of the Reading with Robin podcast. As always, our full-length podcasts will be available right here on robincall.com. We appreciate your support and look forward to having you over next week when we chat with our next featured guest. Have a great week and happy reading.